Hey there! Today we're going to talk about frequency tables and how we can fill them in. Frequency is just how often something happens. Before we get started, how are you doing today? Let's do a little more algebra review. This looks similar to what we did last time, but I changed the numbers around. Let's say we needed to find out what is 1/4 of 60. Well, how we're going to do this today is we're going to take the fraction, 1/4, of means to multiply. I'm going to use a little dot to show that. And then we just multiply by whatever number they're asking. And you can put this right in your calculator, or maybe you can do this in your head. You could do 1 divided by 4, which is 0.25, and multiply that by 60, and you'll get 15. Why don't you try this one on your own? What is 1/3 of 18? When you put that in your calculator, you get 6. Let's say you want to find a percent of something. If we want to put 70% in our calculator, we want to change it into a decimal first. Right now, there is a secret decimal point right here to the right of the number. Using our technique dupe, decimal over percent, I know that if I want to go from a percent to a decimal, I need to move my decimal point 2 places to the left. So 70% as a decimal is just 0.70. So when I put this in my calculator, I do 0.7 or 0.70, they're the same thing, times 40. Why don't you try this? What is 0.70 times 40? We get 28. Try this one on your own. What is 20% of 95? Before we put this in our calculator, we want to change 20% into a decimal. So our secret decimal point is here. We move it 2 places to the left. And we're going to put in our calculator 0.2 or 0.20 times 95. And we get 19. Here's a frequency table. We're going to focus on the numbers. I only included the letters so I can identify the boxes a little more easily. So this is just basic math. Let's take a look. We have coaches and players, and we have 2 sports, football and baseball. And then we have the totals. If we wanted to figure out the total number of coaches, what do you think we should do with the numbers 5 and 7? To find a total, we're just going to add them. 5 plus 7 is 12. So there are 12 coaches in all. Let's say we wanted to figure out the total number of baseball players. We would have to add down to find the total here. What's the total number of baseball players? We just do 7 plus 6, which is 13. Now we have 3 more missing boxes. You can kind of start anywhere. Let's start with our total, as I call it. We have 2 totals here that we can add to get the total. So when we add 12 plus 13, we would get 25. The 25 would be our total. Let me just rewrite that. And now we have to work backwards. Let's look at football. I need to figure out what number goes in box D. Well, if I know that there are 12 football people in total, 5 of them are coaches, how many are left over that have to be players? Well, I'm going to subtract. I would do 12 minus 5, and I get 7. Now there's 1 more missing box. What do you think goes in box F? There's a couple ways you could have done this. The easiest, I think, would be to add 7 plus 6 to get 13, or you could have done 25 minus 12 to get 13. Either way, all of your boxes should work out and add up. Let's try another one. Here we have 4 subjects: math, science, ELA, and history, and then 2 genders, boys and girls, and then totals for all of them. Let's start with the total number of math students. When we add the boys and the girls, we get 7. Okay. What do you think? Let's go to history. What do you think goes in box N? Well, 3 plus 2, we would get 5. Let's keep going with the totals where we're just adding. So I did K, I did N. Let's say we wanted the total number of girls. Well, I know I have 4, 3, 2, and 2. What would be the total? So when you add those, 4 plus 3 is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in total for the girls. And we can also get the total. What do you get when you add 7 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5? That should be 20. Now we have some missing boxes. We can work backwards here. If I want the number of boys that take science, I would have to work backwards. I know the total is 5, and there's 3 girls. How many boys left over? 2. So I could just fill that in for box B. And what do you think goes in box C? We would do the total number of students, which is 3, minus the number of girls, which is 2, and we get 1 left over. And now we can figure out our total number of boys either by subtracting 20 minus 11 or adding all of the boys up. What do you get? We would get 9 boys in total. Okay, let's look at one where nothing is actually filled in and we're just looking at clues. Clue number 1, there are 50 people in total. Okay, let's look at our chart. We have women and men and then the total. We have dance, sports, and movies and the total. And we have quite a few boxes to fill in. Our first clue, there are 50 people in total. Which box do you think that would go in? Well, they didn't mention anything specific. They just said total, so I would put that in box L. Then I'm going to cross out this clue because I already used it. There are 16 women and 2 men that prefer dance. So I find dance and I fill in that there are 16 women and 2 men that prefer dance. And then we could figure out box I. How many total people prefer dance? We just add 16 plus 2 and we get 18. So then that finishes off clue number 2. Let's take a look at clue number 3. Of the women who prefer dance, 50% prefer movies. This is a little tricky. So when they say the women who prefer dance, how many women prefer dance? 16. So now I'm looking to find 50% of 16. What is 50% of 16? That would be 8. We can get this by turning 50% into a decimal and doing 0.50 times 16, which is 8, or you could just kind of do that in your head because half of 16 is 8. So 50% prefer movie. So I'm going to put my 8 right there. And that should finish up clue number 3. Let's look at clue number 4. 16 people prefer movies. Where do you think 16 goes? Which box? It didn't say men or women, so that would be the total. Now I can figure out how many men prefer movies. What do you think goes in box G? Well, if there's 16 people in total, 18 of them are women, so that means 8 have to be men. And that takes care of clue number 4. Let's look at clue number 5. There are 20 men in total. Which box does that go in? That goes in box H. Men in total, we get 20. Now let's start filling in some missing information. If there are 50 people in total, 20 of them are men, how many have to be women? Well, we're going to subtract to work backwards. We do 50 minus 20, and we get 30. Now we need to do some working backwards here. This is kind of tricky because there's a lot of boxes kind of filled in. I don't really know anything about sports, but I know everything about everything else. So let's start with the women. So if I know that there are 30 women in total, 16 are dancing, 8 are watching movies, what's left over? Well, in order to do this, I'm just going to subtract. So in your calculator, what you can put is 30 minus 8, and we get 22. And then we need to subtract again. 22 minus the 16. Put that in the calculator, and we get 6. Okay, let's do this again. This time with the men. I know that there are 20 men in total. 8 of them are watching movies, 2 of them are dancing. How many are left over to prefer sports? So you can actually do this in one shot. You could do 20 minus 8 minus 2, and you get 10. So one final box. What do you think goes in box J for the total people that prefer sports? So you can either add 6 plus 10 and get 16, or you could do 50 minus 16 minus 8. I think adding would be a little bit easier. Okay, let's do another one. This one is a little trickier. We have people that watch sports, people that don't watch sports, the total. We also have people that like pop music, people that don't like pop music, and a total. Let's look at clue number 1. A survey of 100 students was taken. What box does that go in? That would be the total. And I don't think we can really get anything else out of this clue. Let's look at clue number 2. It was found that 60 students watch sports. What box do you think that goes in? Well, it just said 60 students watch sports. They didn't mention anything else. So that could go in the total. Then it says 34 of these did not like pop music. This is a little tricky. Which box do you think the 34 goes in? So when they say 34 of these, they're referring to the 60. So I'm going to fill in the did not like pop music right here, referring to the 60 students that watch sports. And that should take care of clue number 2. We got 2 things out of that. Now we could figure out box A. We just have to subtract 60 minus 34. You could put that in your calculator. What do you get? 26. Okay, let's look at clue number 3. Of the students who did not watch sports, 70% liked pop music. All right, I need to know how many students did not watch sports. I actually don't have that information. How can I figure out how many students don't watch sports? I actually need to subtract. I know that there are 100 students in total. 60 of them watch sports. So who's left over to not watch sports? We do 100 minus 60. We get 40. Okay, now I can actually use clue number 3. So when they say of the students who did not watch sports, they mean 40. 70% like pop music. What is 70% of 40? To figure that out, I'm just going to do 0.70 or 0.7 times 40. I could put that in the calculator. 0.7 times 40 is 28. So now I need to figure out what box my 28 goes in. Which one would that be? So when they talk about the pop music, that's up here. And you could fill in a missing box here. So for the people who don't watch sports, if there are 40 in total, 28 like pop, how many don't like pop? We just have to subtract. 40 minus 28 would be 12. And then our last clue, not exactly a clue, we just have to complete everything. So we can just start by adding these up. What would be the total number of people who like pop when you add up 26 and 28? You would get 54. And what would be in box F, our missing number? You would just have to do 34 plus 12 is 46. And you can actually check your work here. When I add 54 plus 46, I do indeed get 100, so it works. Okay, so now I'm going to have you try some on your own. This will be the end of the Ed puzzle, and I'm going to give you a student-paced pear deck. You can draw it right on the slides. It'll look something like this, student-paced pear deck. It'll save automatically as you go. So I'm going to give you just 3 of these to work on. You write in the numbers right on the slide here, and I'll see it when you're done. Just submit the Google Classroom assignment, and I'll know to look for it. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing your work.